Hello and welcome to another HistorySpeak.com podcast. My name is Randy Jaye and I am your host for this podcast. This is one of a series of podcasts that are exploring Villainy Among Us. This particular podcast is episode number 11 and it features Nathan Bedford Forrest, who was born in 1821 and died in 1877. He was an American livestock and slave trader who became very wealthy during the Antebellum era. During the American Civil War, he fought for the Confederacy and swiftly rose to the rank of lieutenant general. After the Civil War ended, Forrest became the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Nathan Bedford Forrest was born in Chapel Hill, Tennessee on July 13, 1821. He was the eldest of 12 children, and the family was very poverty-stricken. The Forrest family moved to rural northern Mississippi in the 1830s. In 1837, his father, who was working as a blacksmith, suddenly died. At 16 years old, with almost no formal education, Nathan was forced to work to help support his family. Nathan partnered with his uncle, Jonathan Forrest, to manage a livestock and horse trading business in Mississippi. In 1845, Nathan and his uncle, Jonathan Forrest, became involved in a violent street fight over a business dispute. His uncle was killed, but Nathan was able to survive by fighting the attackers with a pistol and bowie knife, killing 2 of them. Nathan then expanded his business ventures into cotton planting, real estate, and lucrative interstate slave trade, which was headquartered in Memphis, Tennessee. These successful antebellum enterprises made him a very wealthy man. In June 1861, Forrest enlisted in the Confederate Army in Memphis, Tennessee as a private. In July 1861, he was assigned to the Tennessee Mounted Rifles, an infantry and cavalry unit. In October 1861, he was commissioned as a lieutenant colonel and tasked with raising and equipping his own cavalry battalion. In February 1865, with less than 4 years in the Confederate Army, he was promoted to lieutenant general. Forrest was one of the few soldiers during the Civil War who enlisted as a private and was promoted to general without any previous military training. During the Civil War, Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest earned a reputation as a brilliant and ruthless cavalry commander for his use of rapid, mobile raids and disrupting crucial Union supply lines. He was credited for establishing new doctrines for mobile military forces, where he innovated the tactic of dismounting cavalry troopers to fight as infantry and deploying heavy artillery as a lead in the battle. He earned the nickname of the Wizard of the Saddle. During the American Civil War, Forrest won some notable battles against larger Union forces. However, he also experienced some devastating defeats as Union strategies adapted to his battle tactics and overwhelming forces overran his defenses. Some of the major victories won by Forrest: the Battle of Thompson's Station took place in Williamson County, Tennessee in March 1863, where Forrest skillfully maneuvered his cavalry troops and surrounded and routed a Union brigade, capturing over 1,200 prisoners. Strait's Raid, the capture of Able Strait, took place in Cedar Bluff, Alabama in May 1863, where Forrest used clever bluffs to make his forces look larger and relentlessly pursued and forced Union Colonel Able Strait into surrendering his exhausted command. The Battle of Fort Pillow took place in Henning, Tennessee in April 1864, where Forrest cavalry overwhelmed the fort's defenses. This battle was one of the most controversial and notorious Confederate victories during the Civil War. The Battle of Bryce's Crossroads took place near Baldwin, Mississippi in June 1864, where Forrest used aggression and overwhelming speed to defeat a Union force nearly twice the size of his command. This battle is broadly considered his Civil War masterpiece. The Battle of Johnsonville took place in Benton and Humphreys counties in Tennessee in November 1864, where Forrest successfully used artillery and captured Union gunboats on the Tennessee River and destroyed a large Union supply depot and transport fleet. Major defeats suffered by Forrest. The Battle of Fort Donelson took place in Stewart County, Tennessee, in February 1862, where Forrest led a successful and daring breakout with his own cavalry. However, the broader results of the battle was a major strategic Confederate surrender and defeat, which led to the loss of the fort to Union General Ulysses S. Grant. Battle of Tupelo took place near Tupelo, Mississippi, in July 1864, where Forrest's forces were soundly defeated by General A.J. Smith's Union forces, and Forrest's forces suffered heavy casualties. The Battle of Nashville took place in Nashville, Tennessee, in December 1864, where Forrest took part in a catastrophic Confederate defeat under John Bell Hood. The battle practically destroyed the Confederate Army of Tennessee. Forrest directed a rearguard retreat, which prevented additional Confederate casualties. The Battle of Selma took place in Selma, Alabama, in April 1865, where Forrest's defensive fortifications were outnumbered and overrun by Union Major General James H. Wilson's heavily armed cavalry raid. This was one of Forrest's final and most humiliating defeats during the Civil War. On April 12, 1864, the Battle of Fort Pillow took place in Henning, Tennessee, and resulted in what has been referred to as one of the bleakest, saddest events of American military history, as troops under Forrest's command massacred hundreds of surrendered black soldiers and white Tennessean Southern Unionists troops that were fighting for the United States. The Battle of Fort Pillow remains contentious, as it is the most infamous application of the Confederate no-quarter policy, which stated Confederates were motivated to execute black soldiers due to a mix of fear, humiliation, racial hatred, rage, and revenge. As the Confederate commander, Forrest was naturally blamed for the massacre, especially in the United States press. Some believe that this despicable event strengthened the United States' resolve to win the war. Forrest's level of responsibility for his troops massacring soldiers who had surrendered is still being debated by historians. Confederate Lieutenant General Nathan Bedford Forrest officially surrendered his cavalry command on May 9, 1865, in Gainesville, Alabama, following the broader surrender of the Department of Alabama, Mississippi, and East Louisiana by Lieutenant General Richard Taylor to Union Major General Edward Canby. In his famous farewell address to his troops, he said they have been good soldiers and they can also be good citizens, and encouraged them to submit to the powers to be and to aid in restoring peace and establishing law and order throughout the land. He also urged his troops to drop personal animosities and cultivate friendly feelings towards those they had fought against. And he declared that anyone wanting to keep fighting the Civil War was a fit subject for a lunatic asylum. Following the Civil War ending with the Confederacy surrendering in 1865, most white Southerners viewed the Confederacy's defeat not as a moral judgment on slavery, but as the result of being overwhelmed and outnumbered by Northern troops, coupled with the Union's overpowering monetary resources and industrial might. Most white Southerners believed Reconstruction, which lasted from 1865 to 1877, was a humiliating, corrupt military occupation that disrupted their social order. During Reconstruction, nearly 4 million blacks were freed from slavery, and they were granted U.S. citizenship and gained the right to vote and hold public office, which infuriated many white Southerners as they viewed it as unnatural and confusing to their social order. White Southerners then created the Lost Cause myth, which claims the Civil War was fought strictly for states' rights and Southern heritage, not to protect the institution of slavery. This myth also claims to affirm the regaining of Southern honor and the justification for white supremacy. In 1867, Forrest joined the Ku Klux Klan, 2 years after it was founded in Pulaski, Tennessee. The KKK is a Protestant-led, white supremacist, far-right, hate and terrorist group founded by former Confederate soldiers who originally resisted federal laws and efforts to extend civil rights and political rights to formerly enslaved people. Forrest was then elected as its first Grand Wizard. That's the highest-ranking national leader. The organization was comprised of a secretive network of local chapters called dens that were located throughout the post-Civil War South. Ex-Confederate reactionaries who were said to have owned a good gun and a horse threatened, assaulted, and murdered politically active black people and their allies in an attempt to maintain political power for whites. During the elections of 1868, the KKK, led by Forrest, suppressed the voting rights of blacks through violence and intimidation. In 1869, Forrest expressed disillusionment with the Ku Klux Klan's lack of discipline and growing chaotic violence. He issued a letter ordering the disbandment of the organization as well as the destruction of all of its uniforms. He then resigned from the organization. Despite Forrest's orders, the KKK continued on and eventually expanded its targets to include Roman Catholics, Jews, minority groups, and various social movements. The KKK actually survives today as a fractured network of very small and isolated groups. On June 27, 1871, Forrest went as far as denying his membership and leadership role in the Ku Klux Klan while testifying before the Joint Select Committee of the United States Congress. After the Civil War ended, Forrest served as president of the Selma, Marion, and Memphis Railroad. However, in the early 1870s, a severe financial crisis led to the company's collapse, which bankrupted him. In his final working years, Forrest contracted with local officials of President's Island, a peninsula on the Mississippi River in southwest Memphis, Tennessee, to establish a penal farm on the island to raise corn and cotton. He used convict labor and reportedly paid Shelby County 10 cents a day for each worker. During the mid-1870s, Forrest made some public statements advising citizens and communities to strive for racial cooperation and civil harmony. During his last 2 years, his health rapidly declined due to chronic illnesses, which caused his weight to be reduced to only 120 pounds. On October 29, 1877, Forrest died in Memphis, Tennessee, at the age of 56. His funeral procession spanned 3 miles, with an estimated 20,000 people lining the streets of Memphis. Nathan Bedford Forrest's legacy is shrouded in widespread controversy, as he was a wealthy slave trader prior to the Civil War, a tactical cavalry wizard, and perpetrator of war crimes at the Fort Pillow Massacre during the Civil War, and the post-war early leader of the Ku Klux Klan. He is now considered as a notorious symbol of a racially oppressive and less equal United States. Although Forrest advocated for racial cooperation and civil harmony near the end of his life, he is still widely admired, honored, and esteemed among American white supremacist groups. During the 21st century, several busts, monuments, and memorials in Forrest's honor have been removed or renamed, or are under consideration for removal or renaming, to better reflect the current state of race relations in the United States. Several monuments to Forrest have also experienced occasional vandalism and thefts over recent years. There are several monuments and markers honoring Nathan Bedford Forrest. Bailey Park statue in Humboldt, Tennessee, is a life-sized Confederate soldier monument named for Forrest that was erected in 1914 by the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Old Live Oak Cemetery Monument in Selma, Alabama, is a graveside memorial and bust of Forrest honoring him as a defender of Selma. Nathan Bedford Forrest State Park in Camden, Tennessee, is a Tennessee state park named in the honor of Forrest. Historic earthworks and local terrain from his military operations are also preserved in this park. The Forrest Capture Strait Monument in Cedar Bluff, Alabama, is an historical marker and monument commemorating Nathan Bedford Forrest's capture of Union Colonel Abel Strait's raiding forces in 1863. Nathan Bedford Forrest memorials that have been removed. Interstate 65 statue in Nashville, Tennessee, was a massive, highly controversial fiberglass statue of Forrest on a rearing horse overlooking Interstate 65. On December 7, 2021, it was taken down after the property owner died. Health Sciences Park statue and remains in Memphis, Tennessee. This park held a bronze statue of Forrest and the human remains of Forrest and his wife, Mary Ann, that were buried underneath it. Both were completely removed. The statue was taken down on December 20th, 2017, and the human remains were exhumed and relocated in June 2021. Tennessee State Capitol bust in Nashville, Tennessee, is a bronze bust of Forrest that sat inside the state capitol building. The Tennessee State Capitol Commission officially removed it on July 23, 2021, and it was transferred to the Tennessee State Museum. Myrtle Hill Cemetery Monument in Rome, Georgia, had a monument of Bedford Forrest that was erected in 1909, but it caused considerable controversy, and city commissioners voted to remove it in January 2021. It was relocated to a local history center. Nathan B. Forrest High School in Jacksonville, Florida, was named in 1959. On January 7, 2014, after a massive national petition with over 160,000 signatures and local community activism prompted the Duval County Public School Board to vote 7-0 to rename the school to Westside High School. This concludes our podcast featuring Nathan Bedford Forrest. Many have wondered if anyone, besides defenders of the lost cause, felt any grief over the death of Nathan Bedford Forrest.